Hey guys, welcome back inside the stash. I want to do a quick little acquisitions video here for a few things that have crossed the transom. We'll probably be shipping out Happy Link Japan here at the end of the month uh, as we try to figure out the best way to navigate Golden Week, which is a uh, basically a week of various national holidays that take place at the end of April, beginning of May. Looks like most places are probably going to be closed Monday, open Tuesday, Wednesday, and then be closed for the rest of the week over there. So we'll have to try to see if we can't sneak our stuff out of the country during that point. Usually the mail runs, but like all the vendors are closed. So uh, we'll see how that all works out. It's not a big deal. It's not like, oh my God, if I don't get the shipment of stuff in, I won't have anything to build. At any rate, like I said, just a few things that have come in. Just sort of still in a catch-up mode a little bit in terms of getting things that we weren't capable of purchasing back when we were out of work. The irony of that now, of course, is that the work I'm at now, we haven't worked for the last 10 days because of situations out of our control. And it was right after I bought a new to me truck. So it's always amusing. It's always fun. Life is a grand joke, is it not? So anyway, we'll take a look at a couple things here, and then I'm going to sort of pan the camera down. I want to go over a couple things more in depth, but it should be a fairly quick for this channel video. So I picked up through eBay. Happened to just catch this out of the corner of my eye, which is another set of the Super GT car numbers. This is an old Shunko sheet from like 2013. Uh, I have one of these, if you guys have followed these videos along for a long time, but I needed a second one. Basically, the anime Ferrari 430s that Fujimi made, they are actual real race cars. We've had this discussion probably a year ago. But they didn't, for whatever reason, as much like the Porsche 911 GT3 cars that they did for Gizmo Racing, they didn't include car numbers with them. They included all of the graphics for the race car, but not the car number. Perhaps because at the time the kits were made, they didn't know what numbers the car was going to run, or maybe they just never really intended it to be a full-on race car in the sense of being completely done. But I have a small little set that MSM Creations made specifically to fill in the Good Small Racing cars, which I'll use for the Porsche. And then these numbers they just made, they'll fit anything. There's a number 911 that ran in Super GT at one point in time, things like that. That's why there's like basically 6 sets of every number. But we needed another set of the GT3 class 27s for the Ferraris. So these are kind of hard to come by. They're out of production. They're out of print. And chances are they probably won't ever get put back into production again because they're 2010 to 2012 specific number placards. But at any rate, grabbed another one of these sets. So now that I have all the decals for that, was not that it was specifically holding up any projects, but it's just now I have another set of them, so I can build both Ferraris at some point. And then we picked up a few things out of Baiyi, just because, basically. I picked up this, which is the JTCC version of the Ford Sierra Tamiya kit. The decals in here are pretty toasted, but we bought this mostly because it's a molded in white version of this Group A touring car. People who know the Texaco car is molded in black. And of course, the last one of these videos we got all those decals in from SK Decals to do the Macau cars, and I preferred to have white ones just because it's lazy me would rather just paint white cars white and make the black cars be something else. The one black Texaco car we're going to do as the Texaco car, but there are other choices for future projects maybe we might do down the line as far as the black cars go. So ideally wanted to get a white one, and I found a white one at what I thought was a pretty good price. So we picked that up. And then the other kit we picked up was this, which is the Cliff Opal Calibra. Now in the pictures I was looking at this, it looked like the body might be kind of bent up, and sure enough it is. It's got a significant warp to the roof. I'm thinking with a little warm water and then taking the glass piece and putting it in here to sort of form the roof around the glass piece, because the glass piece in these kits is a one-piece glass that covers all of the windows. We should be able to mold the roof back into something resembling the top. If not, we could always pick up a body from someplace because we won't need the rest of the kit. It's not, like I said, it's not terribly bad, but it's not not all that great either. I don't know how well that's going to show up on camera. Let me take it out of the package here, because what the hell at this point. It's here, I own it. I didn't pay very much for it, because the decals in this are completely wrecked. But you can see it's got a little bit of a wobble to the roof. The front end here, that's not that big of a deal because it's a separate piece. It's all sort of tooled as one, but you're obviously going to cut the front end off here. You might have to see if the front end fits or not, but I'm more concerned about this roof being all cockamamie like that. But at the same time, if you cut off the window supports here and sort of let the body do its thing, getting back into shape, and then take this one big piece of glass here and chuck it in there as a buck, I think we pretty much get it more or less straightened out to a sufficient level that it won't be, terrible, terrible, terrible. But at the same time, I only paid like $12, $15 for this. So, I mean, I knew going in it was probably going to be a little dicey. But we got you may recall, we got the replacement decals for it from Hobby Japan. So, getting one for cheap was my goal. I wanted both Calibras, but I didn't really want to pay that much for them, so it is what it is in that sense. And then we got the Hobby Design. Finally found a set of these Hobby Design because these sold out right away. The AMG GT3 detail upset, and we're gonna pan the camera around and show that in a little more detail in a second. And then the last thing we picked up, and this came out of Hobby Search. We do, of course, a lot of their pictures in the stash report, the 1999 guys. They were the only ones that had this in stock. Hobby Japan had it where you could back order, but who knows when they would actually get one in. And that is the new Modelers 2017 Nissan GTR. This is a pure edition, which means it is the JDM only version, but at the same time, it didn't seem like Aoshima was in any hurry to do a 2017 kit. And it may still not at this point. It's hard to tell with those guys over there right now, since they're big shakeup of management. Obviously, they're still in business and they're still doing kits, but the kits are not as linearly easy to follow, if you will, as they used to be. So anyway, I'm going to pan the camera down so I can show you this photo etch set, and we'll be right back. Alright guys, so here's the instructions for the Mercedes. Let me get the camera set up better. There we go. So you see we've got replacement for your brake rotors, a replacement pieces to build out the fuel filter, or not the fuel filter, but the fuel filler, replacements for the night lens covers if you're not running the car. Ironically, the car is set up as an endurance car, but they have the plates to cover the endurance lights if you didn't want to use them. Then you have a bunch of vent replacements for various, obviously, vents. The one I really wanted was the photo etch piece for behind the front grille, and in these side inserts, just because, mesh always sort of looks meshy to me. I know that makes no sense, but photo etch vent screen looks just more professional, if you will. And now I'm going to choke to death. Oh well, whatever. They give you a stencil for the Pirelli P0s. I'm never going to probably ever use that. Replacing some of the various lock washers for detaching the steering wheel as well as the paddle shifters, making parts for the inner door panels, for the pull handles and things like that, your LED strip for the headlights. I wish they had created a way to make this into a sprint headlight, but they did not. And then you have over here a bunch of different pieces to put into the interior in terms of pedals and whatnot. You can, if you choose, replace the splitters, putting some photo etch pieces into the front, lip spoiler to sort of give it the appearance of the adjustability the real car has. And then up here on top is sort of taking and again putting in those driving light blocks, putting in the lower valence mesh, and then if you want to, replacing the kit piece splitters with photo etch. You'll notice this thing comes with about a gajillion little, a gajillion little bolts. We'll show those in a second. You know, I just drank something before I started this video, so I wouldn't cough, but it's not going to happen. Anybody who's followed these videos knows anytime I get sick, I end up with a cough thing for a month afterwards. Mesh filters for the back. You can, of course, replace all of your, both your supports as well as your winglets and the trailing edge of the wing with some photo etch pieces. This is the very large compilation to replace the kit engine fan with this whole photo etch contraption that ends up looking like this right here. I'm not necessarily shorter. In reality, I mean, I've seen one built, I believe Weber pulled one of these off, and it looks fantastic, but at the same time, I kind of wonder if it's worth it. And then they have here the pieces to make the driver's net for the interior. This is a lot of pieces of photo etch that you need to put together and sort of make your own net. Again, I think John went ahead and actually tacked this together with a soldering gun, which is one way to do it, of course. And then up here is making your seatbelts out. So what you get in this itty-bitty little box for a pretty hefty price tag, really. I mean, not that it's not worth it, but it is one of the more expensive photo etch sets that they've made. Is this baggie of baggies? You can see here it has all of these gajillion little screws, basically little bolts and nuts, and a little bit of focus work for the camera would be fantastic. I guess we're just gonna, there we go. And there's two different sizes of them. There's like 110 of them, and there's not quite that many, but there is at least what 67 of them altogether. There's 67 little bolts. Also in here is you know, a piece of rod to make the antenna and air jack connectors and things like that. So a whole bunch of itty bitty little things that may or may not ever get used when I get around to building this. This piece here is your front splitter or front dive plane replacement pieces, and then this piece right here, make sure it's right side out and right side up when you guys look at it, is the parts that you use to make the window netting. So that's a lot of photo etch little bits and pieces you have to sort of weave together and tack together. There's also this piece right here, which is trying to figure out what everything in here is. As part of the, obviously the big P0 things are the stencils, and then this is a part of a mesh thing. These pieces here, which you use to build up the fuel filler, and then this is the fuel filler blank. If you have one of these kits, you're obviously why you're interested in this photo etch set. The kit can be built to put the fuel filler on either side of the kit, because some racetracks need it on the driver's side, some need it on the passenger side. And then, of course, you'd have a blank in the place where the fuel filler is not for that specific track, so that has that. This piece right here, a little stiffer piece of photo etch, and this is basically all of the seatbelt attachments and little interior pieces to make the pedals, as well as the slam locks, which I like to kind of like the slam locks that come with the kit in terms of their detail. I may steal these slam locks and put them onto an SLS that I have that needs those because they're going to die in paint because Fujimi stinks on ice in terms of their engraving. This has one of your main radiator pieces, a couple other little pieces of mesh as well, and some more slam lock faces. This piece right here is the replacement if you want to do all the rear splitter vanes and replace them. This is the lower valance lip for the mesh, as well as your wing supports, and I think that's pretty much it for that. And then this piece, let's see here, all these things say Hobby Design on one side, not the other. I'm trying to figure out which side they go on. Is most of your radiator pieces in terms of the mounting point for it, the overall point, the radiator fans themselves, some stiffer winglet pieces, and then a couple of pieces here are for some mesh pieces that back up these pieces here on the radiator. And then last but not least is this piece here, which is sort of all of the mesh for the car, as well as the brake faces. You have the top of the fuel filler itself, all of the mesh radiator pieces, part for the behind the radiator, part for the lower valance, the side intakes, the rear intakes, and some AMG logos that go on the door itself and all that. So quite a bit of photo etch here. There is a bit of a, how much of this am I actually going to really ever use concept to it. Although a substantial amount of it seems like it's usable in the sense of it not being just sacrificing detail for detail's sake. Because a lot of times, the problem you have with a photo etch set is that you're taking a three-dimensional piece of plastic and trying to replace it with a one-dimensional piece of metal. And a lot of times that doesn't really work out all that well. I mean, the photo etch piece may be more detailed than the original kit part was by leaps and bounds. However, that's when you get into the, okay, so I have this piece of photo etch that replaces this piece of plastic, but the piece of plastic, for better or for worse, is three-dimensional, and the piece of photo etch is not. So now what? What do I go with the replacement piece and hope that nobody notices that it's not as three-dimensional as the plastic part would have been? Again, like I said, it's a detail for detail's sake thing. A lot of the photo etch stuff I would not use because I don't think it really makes it look all that much better. I buy most of these photo etch set for all of the mesh pieces that go into all the vents and things like that, because I think no matter what, those end up looking much better than either the screen door mesh that a lot of kits come with, or just the plastic mesh, engraved mesh does. So, and even that, you have to sort of, count your the way it looks, because if you're going to open up, let's say you're going to put these mesh pieces that go in the back of here up. Okay, so you're opening these areas up. So what's behind here in the kit? Like, if you can now see into here where you couldn't see into here before, what are you going to see into? Like, what is it going to show you in terms of the photo etch allowing you to see through into? That sometimes that letting you see into the kit is worse than not letting you see into the kit. So, it's one of those things you really have to plan out and, figure out. But like I said, these were hard to come by. They just reissued this. I believe they fixed a few things in it because there's a slightly different stock number, but it is finally back in stock, at least in a few places. It did sell out right away, even though it was a $40-some photo etch set, which is kind of expensive for a race car, because race cars, you tend to be buying and building to do a number of versions, not quickly, but as rapidly is not the word either. But you're building a curbside model kit. It's in a race car thing. It's because you want to make several of them, not just one of them. Now I know there's a bunch of people out there that will never do anything other than build the box art kit, that's presentation decals. And so buying this, is they're only going to build one, so they're going to put all the detail into it. I don't know that I necessarily buy one of these for every single GT3 kit I build, because I think I'll add, especially for this radiator fan area that's all those pieces, would add quite a bit of time to building it that you know, isn't necessary. Doing one that's like super detailed, probably, but as I said, I don't know, between the cost and the amount of time it would take, I don't know that I would do it with every single GT3 kit I would do. And then we're going to take a look at the Modelers GTR, because first of all, I know a lot of people love how well these things are packaged. It's quite the interesting thing. But we'll take a look at the pieces here. There are 3 pieces in here, but 2 of them are stuck together, and I don't want to take them out of the bag. But this is your decal sheet itself, which is upside down. So this gives you some decals for mostly for the interior. This is sort of the console decal for the shifters here. The parking brake goes there. This is sort of the outline around the actual shifter itself. The speaker section, the door pulls, gauge clusters, and a few other little odds and ends. Back here you have a set of little chrome decals for the GTR logos. This little piece of Mylar in here is pre-cut for the window, or for the side view mirrors, but you probably won't end up using that because it'll just be easier to Molotow or bare metal foil them. So that's what's in that one. You have a little baggie here of your windows, which are already pre-blacked for you, and the back one, as you can see, has defroster lines in it, and you have your side windows as well that are already pre-blacked around those surrounds, which is always nice. One less thing to do, right? And then you have your photo etch set that comes with this, which is pretty basic and pretty standard for the modelers kits. A set of window surrounds, and then some mesh pieces here and there. There are some very nice painted 3-dimensional pieces for brake lights and the headlights, turn signals, the backup lights, as well as the actual projector beams for the headlights. That's a nice touch. And then you have your brake faces and things like that. You hear a seagull in the background. That's the new puppy we have, which doesn't particularly like being put in a kennel during the day, but I'm the only one here, and she chews up and pees on everything. So these are your screws and your axles for your wheels. And then we have our instruction manual, which you know, in typical modeler fare here, has the layout of all of the pieces in the containment, as it were. Your decal sheet and what it goes to, your photo etch sheet, your window sheet. You're showing up your basic assembly here. Your interior builds on a platform the way it usually does. There are some pieces for the inner workings of the car. Basically, you end up taking this piece here, which is the speaker surrounds and the parcel deck, and you end up installing that into the underside of the body. And then the dashboard, as usual, installs on the underside of the body as well. But basically, it tells you what color to paint everything and what pieces go where. This is pretty nicely detailed resin in here as usual. Your chassis, as you can see, is pretty basic. Ironically, they did not paint it, at least on this demonstrator, they didn't paint the exhaust silver, which it would be on the real car. I also think this is not the right color for this. I'd have to go look at some other GTR kits that I have, but I want to say that this is just flat black is not the way you paint the chassis. And then you have your color callouts on the inside here, which does give you several options as to what colors the car is painted. The 2017 GTR is painted. This one is painted the Cataranga orange. I'd love to get a set of this bottle of this off, you know, mate when Gravity comes back up. But in the meantime, I guess we'll just have to hang out, because I really do want to paint this orange color. It's a specific color for this 2017 car. But, you know, it tells you decal placement, mesh placement, you know, all the stuff that your normal modeler's thing does. You kind of have to sort of, you know, for nice as this instruction manual is, you still do have to play a little bit of, you know, hide and seek with the instructions, because they really don't tell you how to assemble it. They just show you the parts as they're assembled. It reminds me a little bit of the way some of those built shots of Mobius kits are. A lot of those, you know, they'll show you the assembled chassis, the assembled interior, assembled engine, you know, all painted up and put together, separate from the actual assembly instructions. Now, there are no assembly instructions, but there are, you know, pictures of the completed thing. I got a piece of resin here is trying to escape the containment. I don't want to lose that in the floor. I should have taken this apart off camera and had it ready to go, but I forgot about it because the dog is making noise and driving me crazy. She sounds like a seagull. That's what I've determined. I just tell myself when I'm trying to ignore her when she's barking in the middle of the night because she just wants to be out and stuff like that. That I just remind myself that it sounds like we're at the beach. The two little pieces of resin here, and I don't know that they're necessarily anything, so I'm going to save them and assume that they're not just broken pieces of, like, flash. But here's your chassis plate itself. It's a little bit better engraving on this than both the test shot chassis shows, as well as most of their other things have been. There's definitely a great deal more engraving, at least to this exhaust section, than there is in a lot of other things. I mean, it does leave a little bit to be desired with like the actual half shafts here in the back, and there really isn't much engraving to the front. But you know, how much time is this really going to spend on the roof? It's not. I think it pretty much covers what it needs to cover, so that you could, you know, just be like, hey, look at my resin. Oh, yeah, this is what the bottom looks like, you know. Obviously, it builds the platform interior the way most of these kits have been doing, where the base of the interior is engraved into the top of the chassis plate. You do have your kick pedal, your dead pedal, I should say, engraved into the floor there, and then your center console is engraved into here as well. Your seats do have a corresponding little half moon on them, so they do just fit into the hole. So that's nice. It's, you know, they're pretty sturdy in there straight out of the box. If I can get this one in there. You know, so some glue will hold them in there, but nothing major. And then your back seats fit in here with little squares. And that's pretty much that. And then you have your divider piece here, which really doesn't fit, you know, in here per se. I mean, it'll sit there, but obviously, like I said, it's designed to mount up into the back piece of the back deck here. You'll see there's a actual little groove right there, and then this part just sort of wheedles its way in here and sits right on top of it like that. Obviously, it would need to be, you know, glued in. I'm just sort of holding it there, but that goes there, and that's your back partial deck. But it all fits. Fits so well, I couldn't get it back out of there. So there's that. So they said your back seats, front seats, it all fits real nice and reasonably tight for, you know, a resin kit. Here's your back spoiler. There is a mid post for this. To, you know, sort of there's a middle piece that goes in here, right there. But overall, the spoiler fits nice and snug. You know, without too much drama. So there's that piece. Where did I get this out of? Oh, this right here. Trying to think of what else I wanted to show you guys. Let me put this here. Here's your dashboard. Which, oh, I had it in focus for half a second there. Dang it. The problem that we have with this camera is it wants to focus on anything but what we want it to. There it goes. So there's your dashboard. It does wrap quite nicely. I mean, obviously, again, this goes into the body itself, but to show you how it sits when it's in here, it sits like this. So the center console is completed. I know it's kind of, there it goes. So it's kind of hard to focus without it being in focus, but it does wrap around the center console. And then again, this just, there's a pre-cut hole there, or pre-cut slice there, and then that just sort of ends up sitting in there like that. So a little play in it to get that probably get it, I would say, a little closer to the window. I would say this little piece that it sticks to is a little bit too long. Probably take about a millimeter or so out of that, so it snugs up a little closer to the dashboard. But overall, not too bad. And let's see. One other thing I want to show you before we get into the body is the fact that they sort of redone how their wheels go together, which is nice. Anybody who's watched the original ones of these that me and John did, Feedin's Garage, when we got our first kits, which were the Subarus, the wheel fit was a little dicey. His wheels were so tight to these resin tires, and the resin tires are hard. They're hard pieces of resin. They're painted, they're, talking too fast. They are molded in black, which is nice. However, they're not at all flexible. They're solid pieces of resin, just like the body is. So when you took these, solid wheels and stuck them into a solid thing, if it fit too tightly, you couldn't get them back apart again. And in my case, mine were slip and sliding. They didn't fit all that well at all. So what they've done is they've added a sort of a back wheel lip to the wheels, and they've created a divot inside the tire itself. So now these wheels only go into these tires one direction, and it gives that lip in there, gives that wheel something to glue to, so that on this side it's all nice and fits, and everything is in focus with the wheel, because why wouldn't it be? Come on. At any rate, you get the idea. So this fits in here all nice and neat. There's a little bit of a weirdness around this wheel, the way it's designed. There's a little bit too much shoulder to the tire, or not enough bulge to the sidewall, one of the two. But it is what it is. And of course, you could always source better tires out of a different, Aoshima GTR. There is a little piece here that has a little bit of the intercooler and the radiator detail, and that just sort of slides up in here like that, so that you have something to back up the mesh, which really isn't in focus, but you get the idea. Brakes, mirrors, little bits and pieces, the exhaust pieces that fit into the back of the body. I think what else here? That's pedals. These are the, headlights and the turn signal surrounds. Let's see, get one that just fits into the body like that. So that's nice. And then there is a clear resin piece in here that would go over top. Let me get the right one out and get that back out so you can see what that looks like all in one piece. So that slides into there like that, and then that goes over top. Let me get it lined up and I don't drop it on the floor. And then that ends up going on top of it like that. It's a little, it might need to be shaved down just a hair. It doesn't quite want to fit in here entirely, but it's resin, so what do you can't expect it to be completely and totally perfect straight out of the box. But it's a lot closer than a lot of things have been in the past. Let's put it that way. So we're going to put all this stuff back away. We'll throw this tub in here, and that'll give you a chance to grok the body real quick. Nice, pretty decent mold lines here in terms of depth. I think the body is pretty much spot on. I'd have to go grab an Aoshima body and see. But it does have like the new front fascia and the new, obviously, headlights and things like that for the front. And then it has the new rear fascia as well for the 2017 body. It has like the little side strakes right here, molded in, obviously, you know. And then I don't know, it's a really nice piece. It is the big hefty, you know, take this to a model club and beat the people who don't like import cars with it heft. But overall, it's a really nice piece. It is, you know, of course, right-hand drive only, so there is that. And I said, you know, like any resin kit, there's little bits and pieces of things that you have to fix, like that, you know, the glue stub for the dashboard is about 1 millimeter too long, so you just shave that down to get it to fit the you know, so there isn't a gap at the window's leading edge there and stuff like that. But you know, overall, I think it's a pretty decent kit. It is another fine example of what modelers can do when they put their minds to making a resin kit. And then of course you have the benefit of it being you know, all fantastic when it's shipped. And your chassis goes in there like that, and you know, it's a little wobbly, but once you screw it together, it'll be fine. So everything lines up. That's the big point. And you know, they really do a lot of the cleanup work for you. There's no flash. It's not. You know, how many resin pieces have you seen where you have to like cut the windows out because the windows are flashed over, or things like that? So this kit doesn't have any of these. Modelers things don't have any of those issues. Looking forward to this coming month in May, or this coming, yeah, it is this coming month at this point. They're going to do the Nismo version of the 2017 GTR. So that'll be cool. Different set of wheels, different spoiler, and things like that. Overall, it's more or less the same kit, but a fairly good amount of changes to it. So this little ditty is, I can't think of what the price of this was. I want to say it's around 80 bucks. So obviously a great deal more expensive than a you know, Aoshima GTR if they were to do one, which would probably run about $28 to $33. But until they do one, this is the only game in town if you want the new body style. So I would be kind of interested to see if possibly how much difference there is in the interior between the 2015 and the 2017. If there's not, I might take a peek at seeing how well the left-hand drive pieces fit inside of here. It would require doing some work to the scuttle panel because the scuttle panel is molded in place to replace, you know, put the wipers on the correct side of the car for left-hand drive. But it's something to at least take a peek at. You know, may not ever get done, but it's something worth, like I said, taking a peek at. So anyway, guys, that wraps up this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys on the other side.